Live from a basement in Dubuque, Iowa.
I'll bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day.
30 minutes from the Field of Dreams and 4 hours from the closest professional sports team.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
On the banks of the Mississippi River.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
It's the Degenerate Sports Betting Show with Matthew Freedman.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
And now your host, Matthew Freedman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Freeman, Matt F. the Oracle. Welcome to the Degenerate Sports Betting Show, brought to you by Best TV and sponsored by the FTN Network, where you can get all the season-long and daily fantasy and sports betting content your degenerate heart desires, including my fantasy football write-ups and all of my NFL sides, totals, and player props. Use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off of your FTN subscription. That is Freedman for 20% off at FTN. Thanks for checking out the show. Subscribe to the Best TV channel on YouTube and rate, review, and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. All right, it is Thursday afternoon. Wild card weekend is quickly approaching. We have 6 games this weekend. Well, technically, we have a Monday night game, so not really part of the weekend. So we're going to focus on the first 5 games. We got 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. Tomorrow, we're going to do the Propapalooza for those 5 games. And then on Monday, we're going to cover the Monday Night Football playoff game. I think it's pretty cool for us to have Monday Night Football during the playoffs. I'm happy about that development. Let's get into the show. Producer Thomas Viola, sidekick on the controls, connoisseur of pasta, titan of tomato sauce, Billy Joel junkie, and long-suffering Jets fan. Tom, let's get into the first game here. You're not really exactly your Las Vegas Raiders, but if you had to have a second team in the NFL, I think the Raiders would kind of be your team, right?
Actually, the Raiders have been my second team. The Raiders were actually my first team growing up, as a matter of fact. Like, my childhood bedroom was painted silver. I had Raiders wallpaper, Raiders like comfort. Everything was Raiders in my room.
Did your family feel as if you had betrayed them, like literally gone to the dark side?
No, my dad's actually a Raiders fan. Like, my dad's more of a Raiders fan than a Jets fan, so that's where I get that from.
What?
Yeah.
Tom, so whence the Jets fandom?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, and so we had Jets season tickets. And so it just like you're going to develop that fandom. But the Jets were always my number 2 team because I had to be contrarian. And in New Jersey, there were like 8 Raiders fans in my town, and we all knew each other. So then I move out to the Bay Area, and everyone's like, oh, wow, you must be thrilled. Like, you're moving to the Bay. You're going to be around other Raiders fans. And it was the same year. First off, the Raiders by this point had been terrible for years on end. And the Jets at this same time got Brett Favre at quarterback, who is my all-time favorite player. And so everything just kind of converged at once, where it was like, well, I'm coming from Jersey, moving out here. Like, it's not really special to be a Raiders fan. And also, and it became just part more of my identity. And so that was kind of when, like, the transition happened and the Jets took over the top spot and the Raiders switched to number 2.
There's just so much to unpack here. We literally could do an episode on this. I guess a couple of questions. How is it that you guys had Jets season tickets when you weren't really even Jets fans? Like, why would anyone do that?
We had those for like the longest time. Those tickets were older than I was. And I think they actually go back to like my grandparents, but my dad would, like, my aunt was a Jets fan, or is a Jets fan. My dad was always like, the Jets were his number 2 team. The Raiders were his number 1 team. But
okay. Well, so
they
here's
go to games.
Here's the question then. How did he become a Raiders fan? Why wasn't he a Jets fan?
I think the simplest explanation for that is he grew up in the 60s, 70s era of the Raiders. And it's very hard not to be a Raiders fan growing up during that. Like, they just became his team.
Okay, so when you guys moved to the Bay Area, was he thinking like, oh, this is great, we're gonna watch Raiders games together, like, and then all of a sudden you stab him in the back and become a Jets fan?
Not quite. Like, we were always Jets fans too. So we just always supported both teams. I just supported the Jets more. but it was still great. We went out to a bunch of Raider games in that terrible stadium, and it was a lot of fun. We always had a great time. Like, there was no backstabbing.
I don't even know what to do, knowing that you are a man with two teams. I'm a man of two teams, the Cowboys and my fantasy football team. That's it. Tom, I feel like I'm not into this. I feel betrayed by not knowing this information sooner. Anyway, so your Las Vegas Raiders at the Cincinnati Bengals as the first game of Wild Card Weekend. Let's run through this game.
Well, it's simple enough. The Raiders are 6.5-point dogs in this one, as to be expected here. Game's going to be at 4:30 Eastern on Sunday, of course, in Cincinnati. And that's what we're looking at in this one. We don't really have a feel on the total, right, Matt?
Yeah, and so actually, what we should do is pull up the FTN odds page, because this was 6.5 when I was writing up the blurb and then like cutting and pasting it into. But now
5.5.
Yeah, now it's 5.5 at BetMGM, 5 at most other books, and actually down to 4.5 at FanDuel. Yeah. So at this point, I'm not really interested in either the side or the total. If I had to take a position on this, it would be on the Raiders still as underdogs. Although honestly, like I'm still a little conflicted on it, because you have the Bengals coming off of a pretty restful week. You have the Raiders playing on a shorter week, playing on Sunday Night Football, and then playing the first game of Wild Card Weekend. Like that's not friendly scheduling. And that game went into literally the last second of overtime. So like they are not operating at full capacity, whereas the Bengals, I mean, it's not as if they had a total bye last week, but Joe Burrow is rested. Like they took it easy in that game. So from that perspective, I don't really like the Raiders. But what I do like about the Raiders is that I think defensively they match up fairly well with the Bengals offense. Now, like that offense can be awesome at times. It can also sometimes they just run the ball a little too much. Like they don't push as much as they could. But the Raiders, they blitz a league low 12.1% of the time, but they are number 3 in the league with 11.2 quarterback knockdown percentage. Like they do a pretty good job of getting after the passer and doing that with just 4 guys. And that is not good for the Bengals, who are number 2 in the highest sack rate allowed at 9%. So this is like, if the Raiders are able to win this game, it will be because their defensive line gets home. And specifically, they have this great matchup, maybe one of the best matchups of any player on Wild Card Weekend. Pro Bowl edge rusher Max Crosby going against right tackle Isaiah Prince for the Bengals. Like Crosby legitimately could have a game-changing type of performance given the massive edge that he has in this game. Now, the Raiders, they did suffer a 32-13 loss to the Bengals in Week 11. They are 5-2 since then. Obviously they've made the playoffs. I think they've improved since then. And although the final score was 32-13, that game was actually pretty close until the end. So I don't know, like neither the Raiders nor the Bengals played in the postseason last year. Historically, road underdogs are 38-18 against the spread in postseason games between two teams that were not in the playoffs the previous year. I think this line, especially when it was at 6.5 and it opened at 7, quickly moved to 6.5, especially at 6.5. I think that line was inflated. Now, the best line you can find out there, 5.5 at BetMGM. I still think that line is a little too high, but it's at that point where it's close enough that I would not be betting it, or I'm not planning on betting it at 5 or 5.5. Tom, what do you think about this game?
Kind of like you, I would have preferred to get the Raiders at 6 or 6.5. You could talk me into taking them at the 5.5 number. I'm not as sold on that. I do think that they stand a very good chance in this game. Darren Waller is back. He did play and had 116 yards in the previous matchup, but him coming back really adds something to this passing attack, and we saw it last week. He's gotten some time off this week for practice, but I don't think that that's recurring injury. I think that's trying to keep him fresh and keep him healthy. This offense is clicking right now. This game is going to tell me a lot about whether I feel like if they win this, they might actually keep Rich Bisaccia as their head coach. Don't know how I feel about that, but I actually do like the total in this game. It's at 49. I like it to go over in this spot. Like you said, Crosby is going to be able to get to Burrow. I think that more so is going to have the opportunity to generate some turnovers here for the Raiders. And both of these offenses are just absolutely humming right now. I feel pretty comfortable about the Raiders being able to hold up their end of the bargain. And even with Burrow being under pressure, he's still going to be able to put up some points here in this one. I see this being more of a shootout style game. I'm going over 49.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. To your point about Darren Waller returning, the Bengals are very much not good at tight end defense. So if Waller, he didn't play all that well last week, but he did play a high percentage of the snaps. He did see 9 targets, just not a great game, but they're easing him back in, and he still saw significant usage. So if he is, even healthier this week, maybe they use him a little bit more. Like, that matchup for the offensive side on the Raiders really could be the place where they exploit an edge, because other than that, I don't think they have, like, in terms of the matchups, like, oh, this is a great matchup for them. But Waller going against that defense, that part is very much in favor for the Raiders.
Yeah, I completely agree there. The next game up on the board, New England Patriots at Buffalo Bills here. It is 4s across the board. Bills favored by 4, the total at 44 in this contest. Matt, it is going to be cold. This is Buffalo cold. We're talking like 2 degrees here.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting game. I took this at 4.5. If I had to bet it still, I would take the Patriots at 4. AFC East rivals, the Bills and Patriots, they're really familiar with each other. I think that serves to keep this game close, especially since not much actually separates them. Like, both are top 10 in offensive and defensive expected points added per play. They're numbers 1 and 2 in the AFC in point differential. Just given that this is a matchup between divisional rivals, anything more than a field goal is probably too much. And historically, road underdogs are 13-6 against the spread in the playoffs against divisional opponents. So, when 2 teams know each other well, they're playing a third time that year. The road underdogs have historically had the edge there. And, I think that makes sense. You just have, overinflation on the home favorite in the playoffs. And in this spot, I think we could see it. On top of that, Patriots head coach Bill Belichick is 27-15-2 against the spread as a road underdog, 8-0 against the spread as a road underdog off a loss. Like that, I mean, that doesn't mean like, hey, you just lock it in, like that this is for sure going to happen. But I don't know, with the cold weather, the one thing I will say, I do think the cold weather helps the Patriots and makes this a different style type of ball game. But the wind looks like right now, obviously, we're a few days out, this could all change, but right now there is not projected much wind, and like 0 precipitation is projected right now. So it will be a cold game, but they still might be able to throw the ball better than you would expect given how cold it is. So I still think, like, I can still see the path to the Bills throwing quite a bit, but I don't know. I do think that this is going to be just a very ugly-ish kind of game, which also makes me lean a little bit more towards the under here. Divisional game, outdoor, cold weather. Historically, we have seen divisional games in December and January go under when they are played outdoors. So I lean in that direction, but I haven't bet it.
That total is awfully low, although I do agree
is low.
with you. Divisional game, like, it's low for a reason. These divisional games, especially in weather like this, especially between these 2 teams, I like the play, but I'm not going to be following you on it just because of how low that number is. That being said, I am taking the Bills in this spot. I am fading Bill Belichick in his danger zone hoodie, which I am sure is a terrible, terrible idea. I'm concerned about the Bills' ability to run the football, but the offense has been looking very, very good the last couple weeks. Yeah, they played the Falcons and the Jets, not exactly two gangbusters teams, but the team's putting up 30 points a game right now. Josh Allen is throwing the football. We saw what the Bills did in Foxborough against the Patriots, and you really have to throw the Hurricane game in Orchard Park out the window. That's not indicative of what these teams are going to do in this spot. Mac Jones in his first ever playoff game, I'm siding with the team that's just got the better quarterback here, and that's going to be Josh Allen and the Bills.
It's fair. I mean, the one thing I will push back on is that, I mean, I can see how they win by 7. I can see how they win by 14. Like, it feels like the Bills could run away with this game, but I do think the Patriots on offense are going to be able to minimize Mac Jones. I think they're going to rely on the running game a lot, and I don't think the Bills can stop it. And so that just means fewer opportunities, fewer drives, fewer snaps for Josh Allen. And in a game that gets truncated in that fashion, I think a field goal is the way it's likeliest to end up. So I see your point. Like the Bills are the better team. Like they should win. If they weren't playing a divisional opponent, specifically the Patriots, who I think have a defense that can match up pretty well with the Bills, I would be much more excited about the Bills.
Yeah, this isn't one of my more confident plays of the weekend, but this is just, if I have to pick a side in this game, I'm picking the Bills.
That's fair.
The next game up, the Eagles at the Buccaneers. Let me tell you, I am surprised because the line is Buccaneers 8.5. Let me just confirm. Yep, still 8.5 here. The total's at 46. I am very surprised this is not the highest spread on the board this week. I guess it's because Tampa Bay's wide receivers are either injured or have donkey brains. So that's the only thing that I can think up here, because this should be a higher line than it is. The Eagles are not a good football team. They don't belong in these playoffs. The 7 seed was an absolute mistake, and this is just dumb that we have to play this game. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Buccaneers. This line opened at 7.5. It got bet up to 8.5 pretty quickly. It even popped to 9.5 at some books, and sharp money brought it back down to 8.5, where it's now consensus 8.5 across the industry. I think the Buccaneers should win this one running away, but I can see the case for the other side. For the Buccaneers. Okay, let's look at the Eagles first. They're 1-5 against the spread this year against teams to make the playoffs. So much has been made of the fact that they haven't won a game this year against a team with a record better than 500. They have a potential laden roster that should improve over the next couple of years. But right now, I do not think that they really are in the same standing as these other teams. I mean, framed differently, head coach Nick Sirianni, he is outclassed in the playoffs. And the thing is, it is true that their one against the spread win against a team in the playoffs was against the Buccaneers. But a couple of things about that game. One, they had to go for 2 to cover. And then on top of that, the Buccaneers were near the goal line at the end of the game and could have scored a touchdown, but chose to kneel the ball down. So the Buccaneers could have covered that game. And then on top of that, that game was at home for the Eagles. I think the outcome is different in Tampa Bay, where Brady has had a true edge since joining the team. On the road, Brady is 9-11 against the spread with the Buccaneers. At home, he's 12-5 against the spread. The Bucs are number 1 in offensive EPA per play. The Eagles are mediocre in defense, number 17 in defensive EPA per play. Brady led the league in yards passing, touchdowns passing. I think he should be able to move the ball this weekend. The one thing I will say with the Eagles, they do have one of the better running attacks in the league. And the Buccaneers aren't quite the run defense that they were last year. And especially with Jalen Hurts having the dual threat capability, I mean, I can see how they are able to grind this game down and keep it closer than you would expect given the talent levels of these two teams. Like the Buccaneers are clearly the better team. That's reflected in the spread. They really, I believe, should be able to dominate this game, but you could see the Eagles being able to extend some drives, keep the game shorter, and that just means fewer opportunities for the Buccaneers offense, which honestly, no Antonio Brown, no Chris Godwin. It means that they are highly reliant on Rob Gronkowski and Mike Evans, and Evans isn't at his best. And Cyril Grayson, one of the backup wide receivers who, hasn't been relied upon all that much, but who has flashed, he's also injured now. It's just, it's an offense that isn't functioning at peak capacity. That doesn't even touch on the backfield issues that they have. So like, I can see how if the Eagles extend drives, if the Bucs aren't quite as sharp as they could be, how the Eagles do make this tighter than the spread that we have here. I still think that's a rather unlikely outcome, or like not as likely as the Buccaneers covering. So I am going with the Buccaneers here, 8.5 at home. I do think that they cover here. I think this line should be 10.
Exactly. This line could easily be 10 points. And here's the thing. I don't care if Chris Godwin doesn't play. I don't care if Mike Evans doesn't play. Tom Brady, over the course of his career, if he has done anything, he has proven he does not need wide receivers to be a good quarterback. I am not worried about this. I am not worried about this one bit.
Okay.
This guy could be throwing to you and me, and he would still put up 200 yards in a game.
Okay. One thing to mention, and this does touch on the total here. In the show notes, I put no position, but I lean to the over. Since then, I've been looking at just more things, looking at the weather. Like there potentially could be like wind of like 15 to 20 miles per hour in Tampa Bay during this game. So like that is something to monitor, because if that hits, like I could see the Eagles covering, because like that will impact the ability for Brady to complete passes. So like that is one thing to monitor. Like the weather, I think, could be a concern, even though like it's in Florida, like the temperature should be fine, but check the wind as game time approaches.
All right. You heard it here. Look at the wind. You know where there's going to be no wind, Matt? Jerry World USA, as the San Francisco 49ers take on the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, that game is sitting at 3 points here for Dallas, the total at 51. I hate the 49ers. I really do. But I think we're both in agreement here that this was the worst matchup that the Cowboys could possibly get in the wild card round.
Yeah, this is really bad. I think the Cowboys are going to lose this game. And that obviously hurts as a self-loathing Cowboys fan. It hurts for me to say that. I hate betting against the Cowboys. I got this at 3.5, which obviously I like that much more than 3. But honestly, like I think the money line is probably the way to bet this. The Cowboys, I mean, Tom, you know this. They're a league best 13-4 against the spread. One of the worst things that I've done this year as a sports bettor is bet against the Cowboys. It's been so painful, but I still I haven't been super emotional betting against the Cowboys. It's always based on the numbers, and looking at the numbers, I still think that they are vulnerable. Like, let's not even talk about the matchup with the 49ers, because that is big. That's important. Let's just start with the numbers for the Cowboys. On defense, they're number 1 in the league with 34 turnovers. Great, right? Like I would rather have a team that can get turnovers than a team that can't. But the Cowboys are living on turnovers, right? Turnovers are fluky, and I'm worried about them when they don't get turnovers. They are number 2 in penalties on defense, and they're number 12 in yards per play. Like at best, the Cowboys defense is opportunistic, fantastic, but at worst, they are undisciplined and they are exploitable. And this is where we get into the matchup. If there is one guy who probably has a sense of how to exploit defensive coordinator Dan Quinn's unit, it is 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, who worked under Quinn for 2 seasons with the Falcons. Like, I think Shanahan is going to do it with the running game all over. Like, there's going to be so much motion that the Cowboys defense is not going to know what to do. You have Deebo Samuel, who can take the ball out of the backfield. Also, one of the best receivers in the league. You have Brandon Ayuk, who is a very strong number 2. You have Kittle, who is dominant as a blocker. And the thing is, the Cowboys in tight end defense are one of the worst teams in the league against tight ends who line up in line. So like Kittle, like in line, is going to dominate as a blocker and a receiver. The 49ers are getting back their left tackle. This is painful. Like, this is very painful for me. And you have Dak Prescott. He's been great in division, like 23-8 against the spread in division, utterly dominant. Outside of division, he's been really mediocre for his career, 25-30-2 against the spread. And as a home favorite against teams outside of division, Prescott is a terrifying 7-16-1 against the spread. Like, this is not a good spot for the Cowboys just in general. I think their team is vulnerable, and the 49ers, I think, are, as you said, the worst possible matchup that anyone could have presented to the Cowboys in this spot. 49ers +3, 49ers on the money line. It pains me to say that, but I think that is the right side.
I'll probably be on that with you. I'll tell you that Dak Prescott stat tells you one thing and one thing only. The Cowboys have gotten a lot of benefit from playing 6 games against SEC teams over the past several years. That is simply what is going on here. That division has been dog water for so long at this point that the fact that the Cowboys hadn't won the division for the last several years until now is sad.
Yeah. And the thing is, I would say that those stats, like the performance that the Cowboys have against division, that impacts the way that bettors view them for all of their other games outside of division, because they think, oh, this is a good team. Look at what they just did. But it's like, no, they have production that is inflated because they get to play in their division.
Yeah, for sure. The good news, though, is that when you're number 1 in the league in turnovers, the quarterback you want to be playing is Jimothy G, because he is a turnover machine. He is terrible with the football. He's just bad in general. If he even plays in this game, because that thumb injury is no joke. That is a painful thumb injury to have, and it makes it very hard to throw the football. I mean, he's not even their best quarterback on their roster, and I'm not talking about Trey Lance. Deebo Samuel's been better than him.
Stop it. Stop, Tom. Okay, I didn't even mention this. Shanahan, as a road dog with Garoppolo, is 9-3 against the spread. Just like kick me in the balls. The 49ers are going to dominate the Cowboys in this game, and I'm going to hate every second of it. Like, I honestly don't know if I even want to watch this game. Like, I think it's going to be a good football game. Like, it should be really entertaining, but I think this is going to be too painful for me as a Cowboys fan.
I'm going to hate watch hoping both teams lose.
And the thing is, I'm not even going to enjoy this game as much as I should as a football fan or as a Cowboys fan if the Cowboys are able to win. You know?
Here's my thing. Like, on the one hand, for me personally, I can't stand the 49ers. I hate that they're in the playoffs. They're not actually a good football team, but they match up well here. And if they're going to win, at least let them beat the Cowboys, because the one thing that could be worse than the pandemic that we've been going through for the last several years now is a Cowboys Super Bowl, because that Cowboys fans after a Super Bowl in the modern era would be 1,000,000 times worse than the coronavirus. This would be the worst thing to happen to the planet in a long, long time.
I disagree with your reason to take, but
we haven't seen the Cowboys win a Super Bowl since the invention of social media. I don't want to see what that looks like, because that's going to be insufferable.
You could just mute the word Cowboys. Not that big of a deal. I will say on the total, I haven't bet it yet, but I might bet the over. I think the Cowboys will be able to score points, but I think the 49ers are going to score points too. In postseason, indoor games are 29-14 to the over, which is just obscene. But I think that makes sense. In these games, we get perfect conditions, two teams that are playing 100%. Normally, they're willing to take a little more risk that they wouldn't. I think all of that leads to more scoring. The margin between the over-under and what the final game total actually is historically has been 4 points. So, like, it's not like it's 29-14 to the over and it's really tight. Like, it's more than a field goal that indoor games have been underrated. So I haven't taken a position on this one yet, but it is definitely one that I am eyeing.
All right. Well, what about our I'm with you. I'm with you on the over in that one. What about our last game, though? Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Going to be the Sunday night primetime game here. And the Chiefs right now, 12.5-point favorites, 46.5 points on the total. Where are you going in this one?
I mean, I cannot bet on the Steelers. Like, I feel like the fake wannabe sharp in me wants to bet on the Steelers, because it's like, oh, Mike Tomlin, he always gets his team ready. He's 47-25-3 against the spread as an underdog. Like, Tomlin is historically good when the betting market puts a chip on his shoulder. But the Steelers are so bad. They just, they had a 36-10 road loss to the Chiefs in week 16, right? That wasn't even like, oh, that was, early in the season. It was like, no, that was less than a month ago. The Steelers just got trashed on the road, similar circumstances, 36-10 by the Chiefs. And that game wasn't even as close as the 36-10 score would actually suggest. Like, the Steelers were decimated in that game. Only Jared Goff has a lower average depth of target this year among starting quarterbacks than Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, like, Big Ben's arm is dead. I have zero respect for this Steelers team outside of Tomlin. Like, they will give everything. Like, they will have maximal effort. They do not want to be destroyed in general or in Roethlisberger's last game. I still don't think that's going to matter. I am betting on the Chiefs in this spot. I think this should be really 14, but I would be happy taking it to 13 if necessary.
Matt, I mean, this game is just such a joke. The Steelers shouldn't be here. We shouldn't even have to play this game. It is fait accompli. I don't understand why Al Michaels is even headed out to Arrowhead Stadium to waste his time calling this game that completely we shouldn't even play it. The Steelers should forfeit and give it to Kansas City because that's how hopeless it is. That is everything I have heard this week, which means hammer the Steelers in this spot. I will even sprinkle a little Steelers money line. Not much, but I'm getting 12.5 points. I'll take something on the money line, and I'm 100% taking the Steelers to cover in this one. This is an NFL playoff game with one of the best coaches that we have seen historically over the last 2 decades. Going up against, yes, another one of the best coaches that we've seen over the last 2 decades. Yes, the Chiefs are a wildly better football team. I don't care. The entire narrative, everyone in the world is on the Chiefs in this spot. And that tells me that this is where you hammer the Steelers. We're going to see the Sunday night pregame crew going through making their picks before the game. And it's just going to be Chiefs all across the board. Yeah. And the Steelers are going to go out and win it because that's what happens in these spots.
I don't know. Like, I feel like that's just like another version of the narrative. That's like the sharp narrative. And I get it.
I was going to say our company name is Fade the Narrative, but our company sponsor is Fade the Narrative.
I don't.
Oh, wait, no. I was doing Fade the Narrative last night. That's why I'm thinking that.
Yeah. So anyway, no, but I don't know, man. I can't. It's like, I want to take Tomlin as an underdog. Like, I almost always take Tomlin as an underdog. I just don't think I can do it in this spot. Like, the Chiefs I don't know. Like the Chiefs have just been ramping up, and I feel like this is where they start to explode. And the Steelers, like that is just not really a good team.
It's not.
I don't know. I mean,
I think we're going to see a lot of Najee Harris. I think we're going to see a little of Big Ben. Like I think he's going to juice up the arm for one more go.
I don't know. I mean, I just
you have two professional sports teams out here in a meaningful game. I don't see a Mike Tomlin coach team laying down and getting blown out by 2 touchdowns in this spot. I just really don't see it, especially with the narrative that we're getting. Again, shout out to Fade the Narrative Wednesday nights on the FTN network. Jeff Feinberg and Alex Blickel, great golf DFS show. If you're interested, go on over there. But I'm telling you that I love Pittsburgh getting the points in the spot.
I mean, didn't Ben Roethlisberger get destroyed in the playoffs last year? Like, I mean,
totally. Like this is the last game. Like the farewell tour angle, I feel like is going to be a play here.
I think they felt it was the last game last year too.
Yeah, but this time, like it's been said, this is different.
I don't know if it is different. And like week 16 counted, like both teams were trying to win week 16 and that game was not even close.
I know it wasn't. I'm just saying, like, I just don't think in a playoff game, like a game of this magnitude, I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be able to win by 2 scores, especially because it's not like the Chiefs have been great at covering this season.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know. Like my brain sees the Steelers as like the should be sharp side. I just don't think it's actually sharp in this point, but I will probably be wrong. I've been wrong a lot on the sides this year.
I'm fading a huge public side in the Chiefs in this one.
Okay. I mean, go for it. I mean, road underdogs have done very well this year. So like, I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise if that continued into the playoffs. Maybe this is more of like a gut thing than anything else for me, but I don't know. I don't think the Steelers do anything particularly well. The Chiefs are still top 3 in offense in EPA per play. Their defense has improved in the second half of the season. It's not great, but it is close to league average at this point. Yeah. I don't think the Steelers do really anything well. I don't know. It feels like a Mahomes explosion spot to me, but I could be wrong.
Could completely see it. I'm not going to dissuade you from that, but I think that TJ Watt is going to put on a performance. I think that Najee Harris is going to have a decent game. And I just think that 2 scores is too much. And given the way that everybody is talking about this game, this is just absolutely one of those spots that's screaming to me to go against the public.
Okay. We will see.
Anything on the total here? Because right now it is sitting at 46.5. Feels about right. I'm partial to the over, but that's because I think that the Steelers offense is actually going to be able to do something. So I'm sure that you're on the under for the opposite reason.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't bet it. I mean, I would say I'm kind of surprised that you're taking the over if you are so on the Steelers, because it seems like the clearest path for them covering is a low scoring game.
Definitely the case. I just don't know if I see that playing out in the actual game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the over hits, I think that is bad news for the Steelers, but I guess I have so little respect for the Steelers team that I think the Chiefs have a pretty good game offensively and the Steelers do basically nothing on offense. But I'm not betting this because I would also be worried about the Steelers scoring just enough points in garbage time, given that this is like the final game for Big Ben, that they could score just enough points to drive this to the over. So
I think the thing that you also have to look at there is with 12.5 points, if it keeps going up, you're going to be able to also get a potential for a backdoor cover.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah. And I think that's another big reason for the spot.
Yeah. I mean, this was around 13.5 and it quickly moved to 13 and then 12.5 and it settled at 12.5. So like you're on the sharper side just in terms of like how this line has moved. Like I can, we're basically saying the same thing over and over again at this point, but like I can see how you win. Like I can see how this happens.
We'll see. I think this is going to be a better game than everybody expects.
Yeah.
That's just the gut feeling that I have on it. All right.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, I have a wild story for you.
Okay.
So we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but the African Cup of Nations is going on right now. You can check out after this show. I'll be doing Betting the High Line, which is our soccer betting show here. We'll be talking more about the AFCON. But there was a very interesting gambling wrinkle that showed up this week because there was a game between Tunisia and Mali, which I'm sure that you were watching with riveted intent, Matt.
Obviously.
What happened in this game was Mali was up 1-0, and the referee ended the game 5 minutes before regulation time ended, which you can't do. So the referee says, okay, full-time game is over, and it's been 85 minutes. Both teams are like, hang on a second, that's not correct. Like, how do you do that? Eventually, the ref says, okay, you know what? My bad. We'll keep playing. They restart the game. A player gets sent off. VAR tells the ref that it's not a red card. The ref just says, nah. It's not like VAR is like if New York actually told the referee this is the correct call. And then they went out and just delivered the call. It's taken out of their hands. And the ref just says, no, not a red. Not going to do it. Then the referee ends the game again early, this time half a minute early. The game ends. Both teams head to the locker rooms. Both teams' delegates go out and protest with the governing body of African soccer saying, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, this is wrong. And eventually, like half an hour later, they say, okay, we'll get you a new ref and play out the last 5 minutes of the game. And the losing team, Tunisia, just goes, well, no, we're not going to do this because like it's been half an hour. Our players in the ice baths now. They never finished the game. It's officially being called over, but they might actually replay the contest. And from a gambling perspective, if this was a World Cup game that actually had a real handle on it, it would bring up a real problem of what happens from the sports book, because most sports books here, the game didn't go 90 minutes. So I don't think you'd have action. I think that you'd be entitled to a refund on that bet.
Wow. Yeah. Thinking about the 90 minutes part of it. That's tough. It would depend on the exact phrasing of it, but for a lot of the soccer bets, it does specify 90 minutes.
Yeah. Like a game has to go 90 minutes for action, which did not happen even after the restart here in this case.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And by the way, this just speaks to how wacky this tournament is, that on a day where the stadium officials played the wrong national anthem for one team, scrambled to find the actual national anthem, failed, and just asked the players to sing it in silence. That wasn't the lead story of the day. That's how wacky this tournament is.
And you are encouraging people to bet money on it.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. I am very pissed because I did not bet. I said on the podcast, I liked one guy to win the Golden Boot for most goals in the tournament. He has 4 goals through 2 games, and that's looking really good. And so I'm a little upset that I did not follow myself on that.
Yeah. Well, betting on this tournament in general is maybe one of the most degenerate things that you can do. So well done on that.
Thank you very much. I strive.
Obviously.
It's also been an under tournament, like something like every game so far in the tournament, which has gone on for a week now, has gone under. And then today, every game was over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
The trends, they don't pay the rent.
No.
All right, Matt.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to that, except you're right.
Mm-hmm. All right, but Matt, where can people find all the great work you're putting out, and where can people find us tomorrow?
All right, you can find all of the work at FTN. I have published the best bets article today. And then obviously all throughout the week, I'm putting in the FTN bet tracker, my NFL sides, totals, and player props. I've started putting in some NBA player props again, 3-1 since I started doing that. So we'll probably continue to do that. And on Twitter, YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and on FTN, you can get all the episodes of the Freedman Fantasy Football Show and the Degenerate Sports Betting Show. We released last night a new episode of the Freedman Fantasy Football Show where we looked at the 2021 fantasy season, looked at the players who balled out, the players who underperformed. And tomorrow we are doing Propapalooza for the first 5 wildcard weekend games. So be sure to check that out. Use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off at FTN. All right, that is the show. You can find me and Tommy V on Twitter at Matt F. The Oracle and TV at Work. Thanks for joining us, and see you next episode.